The late Christopher Hitchens once said, "Morality comes from humanism and is stolen by religion for its own purposes." Did Christianity steal morality from humanism? Let's talk about it. I'm going to show you a few Christopher Hitchens quotes and then show you a clip that is going to prove the case that I'm making. At least I believe is going to prove the case. If you disagree, please let me know. I'd love to hear the counter arguments for this. But atheists make this claim a lot of the time about Christians, that we steal morality from humanism, or that, again, we just have this fake morality. We pretend like there is such a thing as right and wrong, but really there isn't. And again, what a horrible framework they have. They have no framework at all, really. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But notice this quote again. Christopher Hitchens once said, and this is one of his most famous quotes, "Morality comes from humanism and is stolen by religion for its own purposes." Now, I have a lot of problems with this. But before I get into the problems with that, let me kind of give you more insight on what his mindset was. Christopher Hitchens, one of the most famous atheists ever before he passed away. And even now, he still is. Let's say, this is another quote from him, let's say that the consensus is that our species, being the higher primates, Homo sapiens, has been on the planet for at least 100,000 years, maybe more. Francis Collins says maybe 100,000. Richard Dawkins says maybe 250,000. I'll take 100,000. In order to be a Christian, you have to believe that for 98,000 years, our species suffered and died, most of its children dying in childbirth, most other people having a life expectancy of about 25 years, dying of their teeth, famine, struggle, bitterness, war, suffering, misery, all of that for 98,000 years. Heaven watches this with complete indifference. And then 2,000 years ago thinks, that's enough of that. It's time to intervene. And the best way to do this would be by condemning someone to a human sacrifice somewhere in the less literate parts of the Middle East. Don't let's appeal to the Chinese, for example, where people can read and study evidence and have a civilization. Let's go to the desert and have another revelation there. This is nonsense. It can't be believed by a thinking person. So this is the mindset he's coming from. He's saying this is so ridiculous, the idea that religion is the foundation for morality. No, they stole this from humanism. This is morality that we evolved with, that we figured out over time, and we're developing this system as human beings, and we're getting better and better and better at it. This is the mindset of guys like Hitchens and a lot of atheists today. Even this is the kind of stuff that they argue for. So let's say I grant that. Let's say that humanity existed for 100,000 years or 98,000 years before Christ came into the world. Fine. Does he really not understand the fact, or did he really not understand the fact that there was a full time of existence before Jesus came into the world? That God was in play in humanity? Where does he read that Christianity claims that God just looked back with indifference ever? That God just wasn't involved? That God didn't care while people suffered? As if God didn't, when you read the Old Testament, alleviate the suffering of millions upon millions of people. Do you not read that in the Bible? How is this an argument against? It's such a straw man against religion, specifically Christianity. God came and sent Jesus Christ into the world, fullness of time. When you read Galatians chapter 4, yes, but that does not mean that God was uninvolved before Jesus came into the world. So he's operating off of this assumption that religion, or he's talking as if religion started when Jesus came. That is not true. Christianity might have started, come out of Judaism when Jesus came to the world, sure. But the idea that God's morals were just never in play until Jesus came, or in his mind, allegedly Jesus came into the world, that's a ridiculous argument to make. Look at this quote. We keep on being told that religion, whatever its imperfections, at least instills morality. On every side, there is conclusive evidence that the contrary is the case, and that faith causes people to be more mean, more selfish, and perhaps above all, more stupid. He had some very catchy, memorable quotes. For all of his faults, Christopher Hitchens was very good with quotes. I mean, I can see as an atheist, you might read this and be like, yeah, he's got it. But notice that At least religion instills morality. That's what we're told, he says. At least religion instills morality. I love it when atheists talk about morality because, man, they have no leg to stand on whatsoever. No leg to stand on. To say that something is moral or something is immoral on any basis that should be taken seriously in society. Because when you take secular societies, because he says religion at least instills morality. Well, let's look at all the places that don't have religion if you're going to say that it doesn't. If you're going to say, and he did, that religion makes things worse, not even Richard Dawkins agrees with that. Even Richard Dawkins just recently said the culture of Christianity and much of the ethos of Christianity is good for society. At least it's better for society than in other religions like Islam. And so even Dawkins wouldn't agree with this quote here. But what he's saying here is that religion has made people worse. Okay, well then let's compare countries. Let's compare America to a Muslim country. Let's compare America to a country countries of the past that are secular, for example. And again, I'm not the America apologist. I would say that there's been a lot that America's done that has been horrible. But how much of that is representative of Christianity? Zero. Zero horrible things. Now, again, what is horrible? I'm going to differ with atheists on that. But objectively speaking, objectively evil, objectively horrible, objectively bad, whatever you want to objectively put in there, zero things are actual representations of Christianity. People might be claiming it, but again, not an actual representation of Christianity. Name a moral statement or action uttered or performed by a religious person that could not have been uttered or performed by an unbeliever. Again, I don't have the full context for this quote here, but fine, yes. Unbelievers can do things that are moral and not be Christians. They can listen to the laws of God, many of the laws of God, not all of them, because a moral statement or action, these things can be done by unbelievers. Bad people can do things that are objectively moral. Bad people who are not Christians, people who are unbelievers, let's say, I would call myself a bad person too, just for the record, they can help the old lady cross the street. They can do that too. They can give someone some money when they're asking for money on the side of the road. They can help someone out in a difficult time. They can love their wife to a very high level. All that stuff, yes, of course. I'm not sure what that is supposed to prove here, but the reality is, what is the basis for that morality? It's not God. Why are they doing that? Not for any objective reason. They're just doing that because that's what they feel like they maybe want to do in their lives, but they have no good reason to do it. It's definitely not consistent with evolution, with might makes right, with survival of the fittest. Again, it's definitely not consistent with that. It is consistent with Judeo-Christian ethics. It's consistent with what I believe. It's consistent with this objective morality, just like how atheists, they should say, not all of them say this, but they should say that what the Nazis did was objectively evil, and there are things that are objectively good as well. It is objectively evil. It's wrong no matter where you live, who you are, how you feel about it. There are things also that are objectively good. So if that's the case, where does that standard come from? It comes from God. That's the moral argument for the existence of God. But if you don't believe me on this, there is even an amazing circumstance I just saw a few days ago of an atheist criticizing something about the Bible as immoral, and then when they ask him, why is it immoral? He doesn't answer. Check this out. They're having a debate on slavery in the Bible. Trent Horn, Gavin Ortlund are debating Josh Bowen and another atheist who says that the Bible's immoral because of slavery. Notice how he answers the question, why is it immoral?
Hazard.
Would you guys say that voluntary indentured servitude is immoral?
I mean, I would, yeah.
What about a voluntary arrangement like that if someone elects to be in that position is immoral?
So what makes it immoral if someone voluntarily decides to be a slave?
Maybe could you flesh that out a little bit?
Well, I'm going to say no. I won't. I'll tell you why. This is sort of my trademark, right? Online, if I'm not a specialist in something,
okay,
I tend to steer clear of it. So I want to answer your question. I may not have a good reason why I think rape is wrong, like philosophically or ethically, like some sort of ethical framework. I may not have that. I probably don't, right? But I start there. Is that consistent? Probably not.
Notice that. I might not even have a framework to say why it's wrong.
but it's where I am. So, but I'm okay with that. I sleep okay at night because I'm probably going with intuition pumps, and I'm going with. I probably didn't even use that right, to tell you the truth. But
so he's cool with it. He says, I even though I have no ethical framework that I can use as a binding structure on why this is wrong, it's my intuition. It's what I feel is wrong. And that's good enough for me. I sleep well at night. So even in this circumstance, you have guys like Hitchens saying, well, they say you have atheists today. And again, he's a newer atheist. He used to be like a pastor, if I'm not mistaken. You have them saying, I've got no framework to really say that this is immoral, but it is definitely immoral, totally immoral. On what basis? Me. I'm the basis. That's just good enough for them. I'm the basis. I am the Senate, Palpatine. But let me know what you think. Is there a stronger leg to stand on if you're someone who doesn't believe in God as a basis for morality? Let me know what it is. I really want to get a better picture at what this is, because every time I hear these arguments, they're so weak, so subjective. Why should I, let alone anybody, listen to them? Let me know what you think. I love you. God bless you. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, consider supporting on Patreon. I will talk to you soon.